What's up, YouTube? Welcome. Middle car.
The Tube.
The Tube. This is a YouTube only. This is not a podcast. Like often you watch these, they're also a podcast. This is not a podcast. It means you can only get this content right here. You got to be right here to get this content, man. Man.
Do you think that's what he's saying? Man, I got fired too, man. We have some breaking news, guy.
Yeah, that's right. Coming in the near future, Mayock's content, I guess, will not be at Raider press conferences. Mike Mayock just got fired.
Yeah, he did. So Mike Mayock and John Gruden, I don't think we knew how we would get to this point, but when the season started, if I told you that neither of them would be the general manager or the head coach by the second round of the playoffs, would you have believed that?
No. I mean, I would have understood. I would have believed that Mayock, right? Like maybe him and John, and that's not uncommon for people to not work with John for long, maybe. But the combination of the two, there was who had the report maybe a month ago that Mark Davis was going to clean house. Was that a Vic Tafur?
I don't know.
And obviously, clean house would include Mike Mayock, but there was part of me that thought he might make it. But obviously, that's not the case. Wow. So that's to say, I'm not shocked. I'm a little surprised. If you had asked me yesterday, like, what are the odds? I said, maybe 50-50 that he's back. But wow.
I think us on the outside pinned it all on John Gruden for the abysmal picks. I mean, Alex Leatherwood is god-awful. And he's the best of their first-round picks of the last 4 years, right? Farrell doesn't play it. We haven't noticed him in 2 years. Ruggs killed someone, is in prison, or in a lockup, will be in prison. The other guy, Arnett, had a machine gun ready to kill people. He's gone. Like it's in the first round, it's hard to be that bad. It's clear that Mayock was behind some of the picks. I had someone tell me last year that leading up to the draft, Mayock kept calling him and asking him what he thought of Leatherwood. And that was a guy that Mayock liked a lot. And I think ultimately, John, no different than the 49ers, like Kyle has to give the okay, up or down. But I do think that Mayock had serious influence on these picks. And it's really bizarre, guy, because if you followed his career, when you talk that much about something specific over a long period of time, like it's pretty clear, like Mike Mayock knew what he was talking about. It was like he was on the right guys. Yeah. He took some kind of outside of the box stances. Outside of the box is the wrong word. Just counter, I would say the groupthink stances, and turned out to be right. And then he was way wrong. I mean, he was just outside of the box in all these picks, and people were always baffled by his selections. John, too.
Yeah. I mean, I would add Nate Hobbs, like one of the guys. A fifth rounder, not a first or a second rounder, but still, you had one of your draft picks end up with a DUI this year. One of this year's draft picks ended up with a DUI back-to-back.
Attorney claimed not a DUI in Las Vegas.
Okay. Well, whatever the situation, I do think my question is, did he realize? Anyway, I'll get off on a Nate Hobbs tangent, but I'm with you. I think one of the shocking things is that Mike Mayock I love a mock draft 9.7, but that was not Mayock's thing when he was in the media. He would do one draft, basically, draft board. And I think he was right a lot. Now, the difference between drafting for a team and drafting for all teams is you get that one pick or those two picks, and that's all you get, right? So if you can go, I was right about 5 other guys in the first round, but if you took the wrong guy, you took the wrong guy. And so it was surprising they didn't end up with more star players, although Ruggs was turning into one, Leatherwood, not sure what's elite. Furl, not sure what's elite about him.
Nothing.
Jacobs, obviously, is a very good player, but as a running back in the first round, I mean, I think maybe the Max Crosby pick in the 4th was fantastic, but they had 3 first rounders in 19. You'd say one of them really hit.
Who?
I'd say Josh Jacobs, even though people don't like the value. That was a good evaluation of the individual.
I agree. Which was clearly, remember DJ was like, Mayock loves this guy. Like that was a Mike Mayock guy for sure.
I think Harbaugh's coming. You think Harbaugh's coming, and Harbaugh, I think Harbaugh, even though in some ways it was an arranged marriage with Trent, Harbaugh approved Balky's hire in San Francisco. I've always kind of heard that. So I would imagine Harbaugh's going to have, if it's Jim, his choice of guy, and I don't know if it'll be Balky. I think the answer to that's no. It'll be interesting to see who Jim installs.
Balky's gainfully employed right now.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see who Jim picks, if it's Jim. And I think it's probably evidence too. I don't know what you think about this, that the Raiders' job, you got to give a lot in order to attract somebody. This thing right now, even though you've got a quarterback and you got some good pieces, you just went to the playoffs with Rich Bisaccia. I don't think if you want the best candidate, you're going to be able to dictate to the candidate, here's the GM you're going to work for. And I think it might be evidence in part that Mark Davis understands if he's going to hire the best possible person he can hire, he has to be giving. I'd be surprised if it's like hires a GM and then that GM hires a coach. Maybe I'm wrong.
I agree.
But I'd be surprised. And I think this is partly just that whoever he's about to hire is going to want to do it their way, and they're going to be in charge. And who knows? Maybe there was really nothing Mike Mayock could have done about this situation. He was John Gruden's guy, and John Gruden.
This is a good life lesson: is that no matter where you are in what profession, things that feel like they couldn't be any more stable. When Mayock got hired, he stole guys, I remember, from the Cowboys, his college director, who I had known from my scouting days. He plucked guys off different teams who went to him, and John did the same for a coaching standpoint. Rich is a good example. He left the Cowboys to come to him. That just thought they had a job for a long period of time. The runway was, it couldn't have been any longer in terms of NFL, right? It just was an unlimited amount of time relative to NFL life. Right. I mean, most coaches, I think, are prepared, assistant coaches, 2 to 3 years. And either you're ambitious trying to move up, or you just know you can get fired. It's just part of the profession. I think when people signed up for John and then when Mayock was hired, it was like, we're going to build this thing, and this is going to be a long time coming. And it changed pretty fast. Now, all these coaches are in major trouble. I mean, look at Gus Bradley, who I'm sure had options last year, signed up with John. And now if Jim Harbaugh comes, how would you not expect Vic Fangio to be his defensive coordinator? You know,
I'd 100% expect it. And honestly, there's not that many guys right now that would look like an upgrade from Gus. I think Gus should have a lot of options given what he just did with the Raiders defense in 1 year.
100%. But he's going to lose his job, and all these scouts are all fucked. That email scandal. Now, Mayock might have got fired regardless. There were rumors early in this. Even Mike. Remember, he gave that press conference maybe before week 1. He said, like, my job, we got to make the playoffs or I'm in trouble. Remember, he kind of insinuated something like that. Mm-hmm. But, I think the Raiders on Saturday morning, either Friday, I think it was Saturday morning, I guess, leading up to the playoffs. One story that kind of made the rounds was there's going to be a mutual decision with Derek Carr, the new head coach. And Derek, and someone yesterday in my Twitter timeline was like, I'd much rather have Derek for $30 million than Dak for 40. And I responded like, where's Derek at $30 million? Where are we fucking pulling this number out of your ass? Derek's number, I would say, starts at Dak Prescott's contract. Like, that's just what you're talking about. Now, maybe he could, potentially give a little, but I mean, I would say minimum $35 million a year, right? To stay. And what he would get in the open market. We just saw what Kirk Cousins would get or got. Now, Derek, if he wasn't on this team next year, they could probably do like a trade, right? Someone gives the first-round pick, maybe like a first and a third, and then they extend him. We know there would be several teams lined up to get him. Now, do I love him at like $140, $150 million? Nah, man, that's where I start getting nervous because I don't like Dak at that number at all. Derek, I think right now, what he's been these last couple of years, one of the best values in the league, right? At $20 million.
Yeah, without question.
Him and
without
Jimmy.
Question. Yeah, I mean, I draw the line a little on value once it's like not enough of a player, but yeah, they're both value. Derek especially, I would say.
$15 million, the difference between $20 or $23 million and 40 and 45, like what Mahomes made. That's a lot of money in a salary cap league.
Yeah.
Look how much you can get a couple guards and maybe a nickel corner and a kicker. I mean, you could just get 4 or 5 extra players. And as you see in the NFL, guys just go down. But it's weird. I think Mike Mayock was a guy that people on the inside always respected. I think people on the outside, he was universally just people thought he knew what he was talking about. He got his shot, and I wouldn't call it a failure. Like he was part of a team that a joke franchise that he helped get to the playoffs for the second time in basically 2 decades. But he's never going to become a GM again. Like that's over. That's just not going to happen. Like this was a shot. He blew it on John Gruden. I don't mean he blew it.
It was going to be his only shot.
I would say, but if it went well, maybe it was just like him and Mark Davis had a falling out. Like it just didn't go.
But I mean,
well.
he wasn't getting into the league with another job. This was the way for him to get into the league as a GM. Was somebody else was somebody else hiring Mike Mayock from NFL Network if it wasn't John Gruden to be the general manager?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, now that he's older, right? Because he was late 50s. Yeah, it's not like he was 40 years old.
I mean, to your point, the Raiders, and I totally understand it. I get it. But the Raiders are firing a general manager after they just got to the playoffs. Are the Cowboys going to fire anybody?
No.
The Raiders fired the GM. They just got to the playoffs, the place they've been trying to get. They just got there. It was like, now, again, this is not, not good enough. Our standards are higher. That's not what's happening here. So I totally get it. But it's pretty crazy. If you had said, what happens? The Raiders make the playoffs in 2021. You'd say, can you extend the guy that's on a 10-year contract halfway through that contract? Because that's what we'd be talking about.
Yeah, the only way this does not blow up in Mark's face if Jim Harbaugh signing up and then he just fixes all their problems. If he's got to hire like the Dayballs and like Ziegler's and Adam Peters, like I have zero faith he has any clue what he's doing. If he's just going to hire Jim Harbaugh, kind of like John Gruden, let you do it, which clearly I think he wants to do, they'd have a chance. But I do think the Carr thing is going to get dicey because he needs a big contract. That's just the fact. That's just the going rate for Derek Carr. It is large. It is dramatically larger than anything they've ever signed, and the biggest contract they've ever signed is Derek. And I bet if you asked Mark over a cocktail, he'd be like, yeah, it was solid. Like he was good for us. I don't think he would like do cartwheels, right? He didn't embarrass us, clearly. I mean, not as a guy, but I mean as a player. But would we have wanted a little more for the $120 million we gave him? Probably. So
yeah, but I also think
now do I want to give him 180 and guarantee 130? Like that's I understand. I think it's going to be difficult for Mark Davis, assuming he has the cash, to pay the cash.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it should be difficult for Mark Davis. I think it should be difficult for his cap guy to recommend it, or his GM to go, are we really doing this? But this is a quarterback that I think you got to the playoffs in large part because of him. You didn't lose in the playoffs because of him. Again, on a franchise that does not go to the playoffs. And I think with a little offensive creativity, a little more stability, could be a more consistent football team. So I'm with you. I think the risk is there. I also think the risk of not doing it and what you end up with searching in the desert for your next quarterback is much greater. And I think if you're a coach coming in, if you're like Jim Harbaugh as an example, ideally Jim would like to do like hey, Alex is here for a year or two, and then I can transition to my young guy, Colin Kaepernick, right? Which is what he did. It's different when you start throwing around the type of money you're talking about. But I do think, like, if you were Vic Fangio, would you have rather walked into a situation that had a slightly overpaid but pretty good quarterback?
Yeah,
yes,
for sure. 100%.
Right, absolutely. You're just winning more football games. And I think, for me, the bottom line would be a new coach would have to think, I can make the playoffs with Derek Carr as my quarterback. And if I'm making the playoffs, I'm getting a contract extension. Maybe my team's imperfect. Maybe my quarterback's making a little too much. But at least at this point in time, I think it would line up pretty well for a new head coach because you're not extending him in like your third year where now the pressure's really mounting. You're extending him right as you walk in. And so it's all great. I mean, it's you're a wild card team. You go win 10, 11 games. You get bounced in the first round 2 out of the next 3 years. Like, I still think, okay, now the pressure mounts, but I think that's a pretty useful way to use a quarterback contract if I'm stepping into the situation.
I'd agree. But I think from Mark Davis's standpoint, from the birdies I'm hearing, I do think it's going to be complicated.
Now you're talking about something else, right?
You're talking
about physically writing the check. Here you go.
Yeah, and I think Mark is going to be the only guy who is seriously, once he blows out everybody, who's lived through it all with Derek. 8-9 years of it. Seen it all. And now he's paid him $120 million. Right? He's paid him. It wasn't the 70 guaranteed. It was every penny of that contract. Or at least, minus whatever he's owed this final year. Derek has received every penny up until this year where he's owed like $20 or $21 million.
Yeah.
So it's a different experience than the new coach coming in. Now, I would say Derek makes a lot of sense for Jim Harbaugh. Just feels like that's the type of guy that he would try to win with. And Derek's value around the league, given the quarterbacks, people that need quarterbacks, it's going to be it's assuming Rodgers and Russell don't go anywhere. Like there just aren't that many quarterbacks. They don't exist. There aren't any guys coming in the draft. Jimmy Garoppolo, we'll see. And even him, it's like I don't see anyone extending him to a big contract. He got hurt for the second time in a month. He's hurt a lot. I mean, Jimmy
plays
gets
through
hurt.
it.
He does, but he gets injured a lot. Like the first thing I saw today was like, I've been in these draft meetings, man, these free agency meetings. Jimmy has just injury after injury after injury, and I know people are desperate for quarterbacks, and I no one questions his toughness now, but if he wasn't going to miss any practices, did you have to let that out? I would not have said anything.
You're saying you would not have? Do you have to put it on the injury report midweek?
Well, only if he misses any time.
Which he is.
Assuming, but Kyle said that he might be able to play. Like, to me, I don't think he would have had to say anything. Now, maybe Jimmy wanted it out there.
Maybe you want the Packers thinking about Trey Lance again. They probably had stopped thinking about Trey Lance for their game planning purposes. Now they're thinking about Trey Lance again.
Trey Lance had a touchdown against the Packers the first time?
That's right. The red zone score, right?
I saw someone tweet that out. Like, totally forgot. Trey Lance had a sweet touchdown in the first. I was like, oh, yeah. It was like 4th and 1. Remember? It was like a little like bootleg, and he walked right into the end zone. It was a good play.
The play got people excited.
I know. It's been a long time coming.
A.O. Aaron says, thoughts on Dodd as a pairing with Harbaugh?
Bald guy with the Colts. I've never met him, but I know people that like him a lot. I don't know. Do they have a connection? I just don't feel Jim's just going to like, who's the best 42-year-old executive out there that's not a GM? Bring him with me. Like, that's not really – you got to kind of know Jim. I don't see like a shotgun marriage with Harbaugh. There's no just grab Jason Light's right-hand guy, Spy Tech with the Bucs, and he's 44. He knows what he's doing. He'll just be Jim's right-hand guy. Like, that's Gruden kind of did that. He's like, I kind of know Mayock. Bring him on. Like, to me, Harbaugh, it's going to be like, yeah, Jim's known this guy since 93. Like, that's going to be the thing, right?
Yeah.
Jim and this guy.
A John recommend somebody whose dad coached with their dad at Western Kentucky. Willie Taggart will be the GM of the Raiders or something.
Well, you know Jim's defensive coordinator is like 34 years old, came from the Ravens. He just went to John. He's like, who's your best young guy after Blitzkrieg or whatever left? And he's like, I got this guy, Guy Middlecoff. He started as a quality control coach. Winks taught him everything. He's now our linebacker coach. Hire him. And he's awesome. Like, their defense was sweet, and the guy looks the part. But like, that's they kind of run in a little crew, Have you worked for Jack, John, or does Jim know you somehow? There's no John's more likely to kind of go rando than I feel Jim.
Look at the comment there.
Ed Dodds was with the Raiders
in 2003. I'm going through Ed Dodds' bio here.
Does he have a wiki?
I don't know, but I'm sure the Colts have done a 3-hour deep dive on his background video breakdown.
Oh, there is 17 videos of Dodds up. You got to give them credit. They do a good job.
Oh, I'm not making fun. I think the Colts do a really good job with that stuff.
Funneling out content.
Yeah, Matt, we know we started this actually. So the intention was to start talking about Garoppolo and the Niners and the Cowboys and the Packers, but we started with Mayock news. I don't know. I don't see a lot of. I got to go Colts. I have to go old school Colts.com staff directory here to get some Ed Dodds.
Here's the Raider statement.
But make no mistake, Jim will have control. Yeah, you got a statement.
I love a good team statement. We have relieved Mike Mayock of his duties as the GM of the Vegas Raiders. We thank Mike for his contributions over the last 3 years in helping to form the foundation for the franchise to build upon in its future.
I mean, this franchise has been laying the foundation as long as I've known them.
Oh man, you just
Florio had a good tweet. I know Florio gets controversial in terms of how, if people like his takes or not, but it was just like, you kind of owe it to Mike. Maybe you could just announce you've let Mike go before you start interviewing other GM candidates. Would that just be the respectful thing to do for Mike Mayock?
I don't think they'd officially interviewed anybody else. They just requested.
Okay, but at that point, unless you're considering keeping him, maybe you just make sure someone accepts your request before you fire him.
Did feel probably a little haphazard where they like, hey Mark, it's out there now that we've requested these 3 guys. This guy's he's in the office right now, setting up the Senior Bowl travel. We want to
measuring Mayock's desk.
It's just, it does feel a little. And listen, we talk some shit about Mark Davis. I make fun of him. Jed, Mara, none of these guys are alone. I to think that any of these guys, I'll never forget when I got fired. I just went, well, I've only had one professional job.
Talking about the Eagles?
Scouting players. How does anyone know if I know what I'm talking about or not? Right. And even, I guess if you become like Caserio or Ballard or even like an Adam Peters, you've done it long enough, you get kind of famous. But a lot of these guys, like how often do you personally see Rap Sheet or Schefter or something tweet that so-and-so interviewed 3 guys and you've never heard of them? Like you got no clue if the guy's any good or not.
I always like the rising star in the business. This assistant tight ends coach. It's like rising star based on, is everyone reviewing practice tape? Well, is everyone making this stuff up?
It's crazy. Yeah, it's all agent driven. No one knows. So, I just think that there is so much. There's a huge element. I saw not Kyle, Breer in his MMQB today wrote, I don't remember this exactly. He claimed that the Niners struck out on McVay. I don't exactly remember it like that. I definitely know they were talking to him. To me, where they struck out is that Josh and Caserio, like they wanted to do those 2 guys, and they both basically said no, right? That was their number 1 candidate, McDaniels and Caserio, and Josh said no. And then they pivoted to Kyle. But let's face it, there is a huge element of luck. Like even just watching Kyle yesterday, think about all these teams right now, Raiders included, unless they get Harbaugh, then I give them a lot of credit on that hire. But even to that hire, they kind of luck into that Jim wants to go there, like the Raiders mean something to him. It's not like Mark is just like closing, locking in deals. It's like, no, Jim, he's fucking passionate about his past and the West Coast, and it's like Jim. Did Jed get a lot of credit for hiring Jim? Jim was fucking 10 minutes down the road kicking ass at Stanford, right?
Yeah, I mean, but also, would other teams hire Jim Harbaugh in the NFL right now? Yes. Does any team want to hire Jim Harbaugh more than Mark Davis does? No. Like, is any team going to make it as easy for Jim as Mark Davis would? No. You know what I'm saying? Like, he could get another job, but nobody's going to give him the blank. And when I say check, I'm not talking just about money. Just the do whatever you want, Jim. I've been chasing you for years thing that he's going to get from Mark.
But hiring coaches is a little bit like a draft pick. It's like it's easy to pump your chest of like, we landed George Kittle in the 5th or Richard Sherman, like Seattle in the 5th. Well, you passed on him 4 or 5 times. You had no clue these guys were going to become what they become, but you get credit for landing them. Like ultimately, if Josh had been like, I'm in, Jed would have hired him. The chances that the Josh experience would have been as good as Kyle, to me, slim to none. I mean, Kyle has 3 playoff wins now, and he's just universally liked. And even when people were pissed on him, they didn't want to be pissed at him, but it was just like, you just lose a couple games, people just get mad. It's football. But it's just, the element of luck that he landed these guys who, let's face it, every single star player on this team right now, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Nick Bosa, Trent Williams, like it's all because of them. Like they didn't inherit. The one thing you'd say about Jim is like, he got to inherit a lot of sweet dudes with the Niners. Kyle did not. I mean, they fucking blew that thing up and they started from scratch. And I was thinking today, like they went, and we talked about this yesterday on just like the amount of star players and war daddies. Like ultimately, these are all Kyle Shanahan's war daddies, right? They're all his guys, which is pretty rare.
Yeah, I mean, I guess early Joe Staley was not one of his, but Ward and Tart were not his, right?
But here's where I give it, like, those guys were not like Willis Bowman level guys, like no-brainers. I remember they kept those guys, especially Jimmy. I was like, I don't know if I'd keep Jimmy Ward. Kyle was like adamant, and I was like, I give him. But you get credit, like when Andy first got to the Chiefs. Remember, he was winning with like Justin Houston, Tom Ball, Lee, and Charles. You get credit for doing that. But then you eventually you got to kind of pivot because those guys get old, and that was always going to be the problem with Jim. Like, would Jim have seamlessly as pivoted from that group
to having
to
to rebuild again?
Who knows?
Yeah. I do think if you're Harbaugh, you have been desperate. You've been in a quarterback desert since Colin's last good year. I mean, he's been looking for a quarterback his whole time at Michigan. And he hasn't really found one yet.
He gets 2 swings every year. Like, I mean, he's getting to...
And he hasn't found one yet. So I think if I'm him and I'm looking at this job, one of the things that's attractive to it is I know I have a starting NFL quarterback on the roster. Quarterback I can have do more than just, run a basic all. Like a guy can make some throws.
If Derek Carr gets to play for back-to-back coaches, Jim Harbaugh and John Gruden, that's a pretty incredible career.
I mean, it would create such a pretty unique football life, Harbaugh stories and Gruden stories. He didn't even really get that many Gruden stories, I guess, in the end. But
if you can get along with John Gruden, you get along with Jim Harbaugh. Is Jim
going to sign a 10-year contract?
No.
He's going to get more money. Right, I would imagine he'll have to get in the $10 million. Well,
if I tell you he signs a 6-year deal, what would you guess the number would be around?
$65 million.
Yeah, but isn't that the going rate for top guys?
Yeah, I'm just saying, like
Mel Tucker just signed for $95 million.
Yeah, well, exactly. Well, he can't come to the Raiders and make less money, so maybe he does have to sign for $95.
Matt Rule signed 7 for $63. What do you think Jim's like? Rule's getting that. What am I?
Yeah, Jim can't. Jim's got to go like 6 for 70.
You could even go like 5 for 70.
No, I'm not doing 5. I don't want any pressure on me like year 4. Like, nah.
The good thing with Mark is there really pressure. There was 0 pressure with Gruden. You just have to not get in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, John, other news. This was big news today. Other news. Oh, here's some news for you. The Cowboys tried to steal 3 yards, John. On that snap, why do you have to let the official? Oh, you can do this. I kind of like that. Why does the official have to touch the football? Because as you said on the last podcast, you don't get to just put the ball wherever you want to put it. The Cowboys' last second snap came at the 24 after the official moved it back like a foot and a half. But Dak is sliding. Here he is at the 7-yard line. If you think this is the beginning of the slide, then it's the 28. But let's just
it looks like the Niners touching him right there, right? I mean, he's right next to him.
His knee's not down yet, but you would say he's beginning a slide right there, right?
I would say at the farthest he's going is the 27-yard line.
Yeah, like this, he's definitely sliding here. You could argue maybe he's sliding here, but he's definitely sliding here at the 27.
Wasn't the new rule, too, in the NFL, the give yourself up thing? Like the moment you start your slide, that's when they can't hit you. You're down.
Yep. But the ball was at the 24. So anyway, just that little piece of information.
Yeah, I mean, I saw. Did you see Mike Silver's tweet about Kellen Moore okayed it, Mike McCarthy knew it, and he was cool with it?
Yeah.
And then I saw a lot of people tweeting out that, like, former players. And we talked about this. The rule is, to me, like 16 seconds would be pushing it. It feels like that 18-second mark. They were at 14 seconds, and then he took extra yards. It was the chances of that working, because at first I'm like, why is the referee so far behind? Well, he would have that referee if that's happening right in the third quarter in the middle of a game, they wouldn't have been in a huge rush, and that referee still would have had to jog up. Correct, the one behind him, that ends up running into him, but he's hustling his ass off for them because 14 seconds is not enough time. At first I felt kind of bad. I'm like, it's a shitty way to lose. And then the more and more I've had time to think about it, it's like they got greedy. And when you get greedy, what it was Gruden's thing that he also said in the coaching ESPN quarterback shows, like you never go broke taking a profit. Sometimes when you get super greedy, those extra 3 or 4 yards, like they didn't need to every single human alive that wanted the Niners to win would have had a heart attack from him throwing it from the 32-yard line, right? But he tried to get to the 25-yard line, 24-yard line, 27-yard line. It was on him.
Do they practice? You remember watching Hard Knocks? Mojo moment. Mojo moment. That was Mike McCarthy's big thing for a prime.
I forgot. I saw you saying that. I'm like, I forget. What is Mojo moment? I was like, oh,
Mojo moment. Well, do you have any refs at your practice? Because I guess Dak said, this is how, basically, this is how we practice it. Yeah, well, if you're practicing it without a ref where your center just gets to take it and put it down, then you're not really practicing it. Chris Sims says that he remembers 18 seconds was maybe you could get away with 17 seconds. But 18 seconds was kind of the number. They try to run a practice. Well, they're not a good practice team then.
Do you know what I think the problem is in football practice? I think I read one time Belichick doesn't allow his coaches on the field at practice once they go into team environments. You've been to a million practices. You know how sometimes like the assistant coaches are like halfway in the huddle, like telling, like, this is not normal. You don't get to just run out there and tell Fred Warner, like, you got to be 7 yards this way. No, you're on the sideline. It's fucking people no one can hear. We got referees. I can imagine they've done that several times in practice. It was like, God, this thing's going to be pretty sweet. But there is nothing like a game environment. There's just not. And you could argue that they even allowed that. Like, Dak, if you're going to do that, you can only go 10 yards. We do not have time. You cannot take extra yards in this situation. There's also a lot going on. We had talked about coming into the game, one major point of difference was just Kyle had been in the trenches with all his guys, offensively and defensively. Like he's been their head coach now for a long period of time. Basically, a large core group of them played on the Super Bowl team, and Mike had not. And hell, they just had to get a new defensive coordinator. Now, Kellen and Dak have been together for a while. But when you see some of these stats, and I didn't make too much of a deal of it just because I didn't want to like get overconfident. But it was like, the Cowboys records against good teams and the Cowboys records against the under 500 teams in the NFC. And you just see the numbers, especially the day after. You're like, that's not nothing. That's not, because the one thing I'll say, the Niners are going to win or lose, but I never feel like they're overmatched mentally. I actually texted with a guy on the team today, and he was like, I was like, God damn, you guys physically took it to him. He's like, yeah, we that was our game plan to go in and hit him right in the mouth, and they kind of wilted. And I was thinking about it today. The Niners showed up in that game. That first drive was like, we're here to fucking kick your ass. And sometimes if you do that to the Packers will hit right back, right? I think Tampa, once they get Tom, like they would hit right back. I think the Bills and Chiefs, they'd be game for it. The one thing we kind of talked about, like, are the Cowboys... They got the talent, but are they going to sock? Like, is Amari going to hit you right back, or is Amari just going to be like, I'm just run my routes? And that ain't really Amari. Even CD, you the one talking yesterday about him, like, jumping off? He's like, whatever. It's like,
well, he tapped out after he committed the illegal motion penalty.
And then you think about some of Mike's Green Bay teams. They weren't exactly like squads you'd want in the octagon. Jim shoved him around a little. There's just a toughness to Mike.
Right.
Which
then
is
you think
weird.
about Mike Shanahan's Broncos teams. Which category are they in?
But you know what's crazy, though, is like Kyle is like obviously born into the NFL. His dad was a millionaire. He's a rich kid, right? If you just look at it like that, even though he's obviously much more than that. Mike, if you ever just read about Mike McCarthy's upbringing in the sport of football, didn't have a pot to piss in. He worked a toll booth when he was like a GA at Pitt just to have extra money in it. Like, he's a blue-collar tough guy. Yet I watch Kyle, I think, like, that guy's the dude from the trenches, and this dude is the guy from the country club. Like, that's what their two teams look like. It's the opposite.
Yeah, I think, I think you are largely who you grew up with. That's a big part of it too. What was McCarthy McCarthy studied the West Coast offense a lot. I think he ran it at Pitt when he was coaching in college, and then he coached with the Chiefs. Then he was on those Packer staffs, or he's on a Packer staff. I don't know. I just know what Kyle grew up with, which is this is how you play football. Doesn't mean Kyle can go, build a house from scratch with his bare hands, but he knows how you play football, right? Yeah. Kyle might call a handyman to come put up some light bulbs, but
that's not what I'm talking. I'm just talking about you would think.
No, I know it's not. I'm just saying, like, your upbringing doesn't necessarily reflect your football style. Your football upbringing reflects your football style, right?
Yeah.
Kyle is blue collar football. Now, if we said Kyle Shanahan, weekend projects, you blue collar guy, you building like a cage for your daughter's bunnies, he'd be like, nah, we'll go buy a cage from Petco or something. But he's a blue collar football guy, right? And it's reflected. It's reflected in his team, man. It's why
a lot of parallels
right.
with Jim Harbaugh with the way they like their football. Different kind of offensive. The run calls are a little different. Jim's offensive playbook, just the fullback. I mean, he's going like running power, where Kyle's running more toss stuff. But the way they want to play,
run schemes are different than everybody's.
Yeah, that's part of it. Yeah, guy, he on the fly this year created a play. Because it was like, we kept saying, like, you just can't, how are you going to just run the toss? They created a toss play that's not a toss. It's a handoff, but you toss it to him, and he just goes right back up the middle.
I love that play.
They created that play midseason, didn't they? He has not been running that consistently over the years.
No, I don't remember seeing it.
Because you had to add the element, because you just can't run the toss nonstop. But you can get them to kind of overcompensate, and then he just cuts back up the middle. Did you see the play that I saw Schwartz retweeted it? And this is where I think that, like, everyone's like, why isn't George Kittle more involved? He is involved. Like, Debo's yes. his touchdown run. You see George on that play? It's like, Jesus Christ. This guy's cracking skulls. Him and Juszczyk, those two guys, like, having 7 offensive linemen. Juszczyk, like, one of the first plays of the game, when he hit Van Der Esch, and Van Der Esch is clearly big. Like, I don't know if he's the most fluid athlete, but he is a big football player. He honestly looks more like a guy that would have been when we were a kid. And
his name was spelled wrong?
On his own jersey?
Yeah.
When Juszczyk hit him and he kind of elevated and went backwards, I went, oh my God, these guys are fucking here for keeps. That's that. If the Niners are going to win this week, they're just going to have to make sweet plays. Like, the Packers are not. They're just much more mentally tough, having built the last couple of years than the Cowboys. Right?
Yeah, I mean, the Cowboys, again, like, to me, they felt like what we talked about, a college football team that can win a bunch of games because you're going to play the bottom of your league and you're going to schedule 3 non-conference games. But in the biggest game, can you compete? And, I know there was some talk last week. Look at this. The Cowboys are in. The Eagles are in. The NFC East. People take cheap shots at the NFC East. It's better than you think. No, it's not. No, it's not. The Eagles are not going to the playoffs next year again unless they fix some serious issues. Eagles are not coming back to the playoffs in 2022 unless they figure out how to throw the football. They got
the Cowboys went 6-0 in their division too. So, like, are they a 12-win team or are they probably a 10-win team in a normal division? Right?
Yeah. But they're just not – I mean, they're not special. And to your point, for as explosive as they are, for all the star players I think they have, where are their star players on offense in a big game? Where were they? Like, consistently. Like, how do you –
CeeDee Lamb had 1 catch.
Yeah.
Like, don't you think Kyle would have got him the ball in different ways? An end around, a pitch.
And this is, you know what? And we do this all the time. I love Kellen Moore. You love Kellen Moore. One of our favorite college football players of all time. High level guy. Clearly a good football coach. Kyle Shanahan's been an offensive coordinator in the NFL since 2008. Okay, 2008. This was his 3rd year for Kellen Moore doing it. Maybe Kellen is ready to be a head coach. I don't know. I'm not even saying that he's not. But there are different levels of how prepared you get to be when you get your first head coaching job. And I think we'd safely say if Kellen Moore becomes a head coach today, that team is not getting a coach as prepared to be a head coach as Kyle Shanahan was when he got his head coaching job.
No.
And it's not to say Kellen shouldn't be one and that he can't succeed and that he hasn't been prepared in different ways. Played for Chris Peterson. But we are so fast to the rising star. It almost was like everyone was just saying it because everyone else was saying it. And
well, he was a young offensive coordinator for the Cowboys, and their offense was having some success early on.
Yeah, well, that's exactly the recipe. That's how you become a rising star. But it's not off any like real evaluation of. I mean, Kyle, really, it's kind of crazy. I think, John, it's crazy the game was that close, and I think it is. Kyle took him to the woodshed, but they cannot, like, they play that same game again because they just won on the road in the playoffs. That's impressive, period. They play that same game again. I think they're losing by 10 to Green Bay.
10. Yeah, I mean, it might have been 20. Yeah.
Now, Jimmy didn't get sacked. They got after Dak. They sacked him 5 times, but they committed some penalties. The pick was bad. They just did some things that aren't going to work in Green Bay.
They were in second and third and long as the game went on. It felt like a lot, didn't it? Like they were not in at many drives consistently like that first drive in 2nd and 5. Because the more and more you get in 2nd and 8, 2nd and 8s with an offsides can be 3rd and 11 before you even know it. And when they're in that situation, that is disadvantage 49ers. Like, that's just clear. Because that just puts Jimmy, his sample size is going to go up. And the higher the sample size goes up, the more likely he's going to throw a pick. And now he's got a sprained shoulder, which, little weird. I know they're kind of downplaying it. He's going to practice Wednesday. And again, no guy has and that's not nothing. When you say a sprained shoulder to your throwing shoulder, I go, whoa. But then I see these clips in the locker room, and it could just be adrenaline. And he just looks completely normal. Every time he has an injury, he does his press. He's just completely normal. He doesn't try to hype it up. But I don't know why they would say this if it's not true. Like, I believe what they're saying. It's just, I did think it was a little bizarre. Like, I didn't expect it.
We've spent a lot of time, right, trying to come up with theories for injuries. And so far, more often than not, it's just the guy is whatever they say it is. Now, Jimmy did say, I'm reading the Matt Barrows tweet here, or Kyle did say that Jimmy should be able to practice this week. But you're right, it's not nothing.
But again, I don't think we come up like Fred Warner hurt his ankle down on the field.
Well, that's
Nick
exactly
Bosa
right.
got knocked in the fucking head. Like, we see Kwaski Tarda at SoFi. He comes limping off. Like, most of the Niners' injuries we see. And Jimmy's are just like, what? Second quarter, you're like, we didn't get sacked. You're like, what is happening?
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're making it up. It's just,
no, I know you're not.
His are just weird, where all the other ones are specific. Now, I would say that Trent's was a little weird. It's like, when did he hurt his elbow? Which is a harder thing to see, but it was clearly like he couldn't go. He didn't practice all week. He was injured. I'm not saying Jimmy's not injured. My point is, we just never see him get injured. This one, they're not.
Well, we did see him get injured in this game, but I believe it was a crotch shot, is what I remember. It was not a shoulder.
I thought the guy grabbed him by the penis as he was bringing him down. Like, not the nut tap. Like, they grabbed the penis, and that's how they brought him down. Jimmy, no! The one thing I would say, the difference, at least with the messaging from Kyle, especially, I mean, time's ticking, right? Tomorrow technically is Wednesday of a game week. Is when he hurt his thumb, it was clear, like, Jimmy's that week is in major trouble, and it was. He didn't play. That is not the vibe. Like, I just expect Jimmy to play with an injured thumb and an injured shoulder.
I expect him to practice. I mean, yeah, the thumb has not really been a factor, has it?
No, he's thrown high his whole career.
Or low, the ball in the dirt to Kittle.
Which was a good throw, because that would have been a problem, right? Because he would have fumbled.
Well, if Kittle catches it clean, maybe he doesn't end up in a, who knows. But yeah.
Jimmy's king of, like, when it's all broken down and his only option is the guy 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage with like 2 defenders right around there. It does feel like a lot of good quarterbacks skip that thing. Jimmy's like, I'm going to boost his completion percentage. Boom. You're like, Jimmy, it's 1st and 10, and now it's 2nd and 17, and you got a completion. What's the point of this? I watch a lot of football. He completes that ball more than any quarterback I've ever seen.
Yeah, yeah.
Just skip it. Just hit their feet. Brady's the best at that. Like, fuck it. He just, like, throws it at people's shoes. Where I bet he's caught a couple guys, like, at the right, probably hurt. I was like, oh. Jimmy's like, George, I got you. Fred, this coming your way. Elijah, here comes a looper. It's like, bro, what are you doing? I wonder sometimes if the coach is on the sideline, like, intentionally drop it. Just hit it down. Jimmy has several completions every game behind the line of scrimmage that do not make it back to the line of scrimmage.
Well, it'd be one of those classic, like, I was listening to the Sims podcast today, and Paul Burmeister was on with him. I was hoping I'd get Ahmed Fareed, but Burmeister was good. He goes, I guess he's doing like one of those skiing events in the Olympics where you, I don't know, do some tricks or whatever.
Burmeister is in the Olympics skiing?
No. He's one of the broadcasters for NBC.
I was like, damn, he's got a side gig skiing?
And he was saying that the way it works is there's style points. And for your style points, your best thing and your worst thing get taken out. So his point was like, with Garoppolo, it feels like if you took out Jimmy's best thing he did in the game and his worst thing he did in the game, it'd be like a pretty even game. But of course, you can't do that. You include all the things that happen in the game.
Problem is Jimmy's like best play, like if you just look at his best play every game, especially against good opponents, is really good.
Well, I think he makes more, like if on a scale of 1 to 10, I think he makes more like 7+ plays than he does like 3- plays.
My counter to that would be his picks typically lead to a touchdown. Maybe not a pick six, but to a touchdown drive.
Yeah,
he does not throw that many touchdowns. So if he gives up a touchdown, he's only going to throw 2. So you see Mahomes and Allen, I was like, they combined for 10 touchdowns. If Mahomes throws a pick that leads to a touchdown, he's like, well, I'll counter it with 5 more, right? So it's like, I gave up 1, I scored 28. Like, it's like, whatever. Jimmy's balance is, he just, when has Jimmy ever had 3 touchdown passes in a game?
Well, it doesn't happen a lot. We could go look at the game log. I think this goes back to a point from several months ago, which is that the Niners are like a basketball team that can't shoot threes. All their plays have to be like beautifully designed and curated, bespoke curations.
Post?
7 bespoke post. It's like 17 plays with like all these perfect touches, like Kyle some painter. And it's like, sometimes you just want to throw a bomb. And that's where it gets hard because you have to make like 3 or 4 7+ plays on the 1 to 10 scale just to get the ball down the field. That's asking a lot, which means that 1 big negative play wipes out 3 positive plays. So you're right. It's not a 1-to-1 ratio. It's like 3 good plays, 1 bad play. Those are basically even because the bad plays can be bad. Yeah.
Very important for Kyle's first drive to result in a touchdown because there are going to be several Jimmy drives that result in just giving up the ball relatively quick, 3 and outs if he's not turning the ball over.
Yeah, or just a heart attack.
Because if you're not able to gain any yards on 1st and 10, it's a 50-50 chance they're going through 3 and out. Because then 2nd down, if that play doesn't work, 3rd and 10, it's very hit or miss. You'd say it's hit or miss for most people in the league. I would say Jimmy, even when he was playing well yesterday, every time the ball travels outside of the screen, you're kind of holding your breath. And some of them yesterday were like hitting Ayuk in stride. It was
John,
like some great passes.
Was still in the screen that got deflected up in the air.
Oh, the play where the guy jumped up?
Yeah.
So what was the result, do we think, on the Brandon Ayuk? Did Ayuk, most football people think that he flattened it out, he should have gone vertical? Is that what people are saying? Or vice versa?
Well, there's a lot of debate about it. I posted the thing that a former NFL receiver told me. When you beat a guy that bad, the quarterback and the receiver usually can kind of both adjust, and you take that route a little more to the pylon. But I think what's funny is like the guys who I've texted with a couple guys who played football today, who both are like, yeah, it's kind of great. It could be this, it could be that. Twitter's like, it has to be this or it has to be that. And like the football guy's like, well, it depends. I could understand Ayuk in that spot playing it safe. Like if it's flatter, it's safer. And to me,
when you say flatter, you mean like he goes toward
like what he did
out of bounds,
as opposed to angling it back up the field and kind of ad-libbing it. If it's flatter, there's no way the safety is getting into you. Whereas if you angle it up the field, right? And you could argue, I think, that playing that flat the way Ayuk did would be the right play, given the circumstances of the game. You're up at that point big. It's a 3rd down. Just keep possession. You don't need to hit home runs. Just keep possession. But if they practice it, hey, if you really beat the guy, angle it up. I don't know. The part of it, too, is you're so used to seeing Jimmy miss that throw. Somebody in my timeline or somebody tagged me in a post where somebody said, well, Julio, who did you miss from like 1 foot away?
Yeah.
Somebody tagged me a post where it was like, well, Julio flattened it out, in some route 3 years ago with Kyle's offense, or more than 3 years ago, I guess. See, that's the way it's supposed to be run. And I sent that to my guy who played several years in the league. And he's like, well, I think it's a different defense. So it's not, he's like, I think they're playing single high against Julio and quarters. He broke it down. He said, I wouldn't just assume because Julio did it, that's what Ayuk's supposed to do. But again, his point was, I don't know what Ayuk's being told. So it could go either way.
Did you notice a couple times early in the Brady game? You could tell.
But Romo, by the way, said he thought Ayuk was supposed to take it upfield.
Did you notice a couple times early in the Tampa Bay game that Tom was on point, and he was pissed off at his wide receivers a couple times. Like, keep fucking running. He dropped one of those, like, keep going. And it's like, Tom, you have set rules. It's clear. To me, Jimmy, I don't put under the Rodgers, Mahomes, Brady umbrella where we're really like, we got tried and fast rules. To me, you throw a lollipop there, he bread baskets, and even if he just falls on his ass, like you just complete that ball. Like to me, Jimmy, that is the classic Derek Carr. I'm not going to overthrow you. I'm not going to risk throwing the rope. I'm just going to lollipop it. You might have to stop, Willie Mays it, and you can just roll on the ground. Like it just has to be completed. It is not like Brady's allowed to like scream at you for this, that, and the other.
Well, Brady, you always know who did the wrong thing with Tom because Jimmy never yells at anybody.
No, but I mean, Tom knows what's supposed to happen.
That's true. Yes.
And in fairness, like they had a couple guys yesterday, obviously Evans, but it's Perriman's on their team. Like they're rolling. Their team is a little different now, missing some of these cats. It's like Godwin ain't walking through that door. AB ain't walking through that door. Now if Evans is going to dominate, they'll be fine. But
Fournette coming back.
I saw today he might not. They lost Wirfs, their right tackles. Now I saw a game time decision. Like they lost a couple guys in that game
Jensen
on top of all the guys that were already gone.
Back.
So there's nothing like the offensive lineman that's down that's just like he's just so mad. He's like, I swear to God, if my ACL's torn out,
he like punched. Jensen was punching the ground.
He's like, if I leave my buddies to go through these next couple rounds, like fucking tape it up. Some wide receivers are like, grab the cart, I'm out. Offensive linemen are like, you got to drag me away.
As they're kicking their ass, too, right?
Wirf's on the sideline. He's like their star right tackle, like trying to work a set.
They're bring him back. They're up 4 scores.
He can barely like stay erect. It's like, what are you guys? You guys are crazy. The NFL is just, it's a bizarre place of just machismo nut jobs. Thank God it's entertaining to watch, but those guys, Wirfs and Jensen, just want no part of missing a snap.
None.
I bet Brady likes those guys a lot. Their O-line with Tampa does feel very New Englandish. Just like they're just tough, gritty group. Gronk actually looks fantastic. Like it's been a good signing trade for them.
And I told him you can't because I retired.
Someone asked him something the other day. Oh, they're like, I saw this.
If he's a USAA member.
Someone asked him, like, Rob, 2.2 seconds this season is the fastest Tom ever is getting rid of the ball. Rob's like, no, it's 2.11. I saw it on the television when I walked in. I'm going to correct you guys. I'm a genius. 2.11, fastest ever. So you're wrong. And he's like, and he starts laughing at himself. He just.
I'll say, if you
he's a good member to have around.
Oh God, he is just so, and he's used like he's not just good vibes. If you, I say, listen to Bill Cowher next CBS halftime. He sounds like old, like what Gronk is going to sound like when he's old. I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure. Just listen.
Do you think Rob does NFL TV when he's all done? I mean,
he did it the last time. To me, he does it like if they like his thing would be like, if I can make it, just keep a seat warm for me. Maybe I'll come.
Yeah, I'm around. Playoffs. Give me a holler. Or week 14, like if I'm going to Cabo or something, I'm not around.
Yeah. if the game's in Tampa.
One problem it's going to be for some of these networks, for guys like that, they're so rich. Right? Like Phillip Rivers.
100%.
Even Breeze, if you think about it, a little bit of an outlier. Guy made probably $250 million. It's like, Drew, you really want to do this?
Well,
like, I mean, you could just be hanging out.
But that's where a guy like Gronk just likes football. The question is not trying it. The question is realizing how hard it is, how hard you have to work at it to be good at it and keeping with it.
I know.
Like, I do think, I saw some people complaining about Romo, who liked the tweet I posted about his hair yesterday.
I didn't know he was on Twitter until you showed me.
I didn't either. But the one thing people, like, is he a Cowboy homer? I thought one thing watching him, like, he's still extremely locked in to what teams are supposed to be doing, trying to do, watching film. You always wonder a few years after guys out of the league where he doesn't know all the players, know everything like the back of his hand. I thought watching that game yesterday, he still clearly prepares.
I think a pretty big advantage for him with that team, though. Like, he's boys with Kellen, and it would shock you if him and Kyler buddies.
No, but I thought he was drawn up a lot of here's what the Niners are going to do right here.
I'm with you. I thought he was really good yesterday too. I actually saw a lot of people shitting on Drew Brees. I thought Drew was fine. I think sometimes people expect, like I just don't. It's hard. Like I don't know if he has much to say because I don't think he has like this huge personality. Part of what makes Tony or Madden or John is they're kind of just huge personality, so they're just talking naturally. Whereas I don't think Drew.
Tony is so funny, man.
I just don't think Drew's natural, inclination is just to kind of be a bullshitter. I think that was really hard for Jason Witten.
Yeah.
And I think you watch the Monday Night Crew, they're not like huge bullshitters. Like part of being a great entertainer, to me, historically, that made the most famous guys is they could just. I was reading some art when Madden died. Is like one of his greatest attributes, like the big games. Like anyone can do the big games.
Right.
What happens
100%.
in the blowouts? That's when John would carry you. Right.
Completely true.
And I think Gruden did the same thing. Gruden just had these moments of just like, it was just always something with the guy. And that's, I think, Drew Brees is just not going to have that in the back. Or I think Rivers, where everyone knows, like, God, he would be a guy.
Yeah. I think Drew still, but to your point, I do think Drew still has a shot. Sometimes it takes a lot. It's not normal for the Romo to step right in. That's why I say, like, there's a lot of people. I saw somebody tweet like Alex Smith would be fantastic. Like everyone always thinks they can figure out who would be great at it. And it's not as easy as people think to just identify. Like I think Alex would have some of the same challenges. Now I listened to a podcast with Alex. He was really insightful.
What podcast?
Like the ESPN Daily podcast.
Oh.
But like, I think Peyton's the same way. Peyton's really insightful.
You venture out there in the podcast world.
It just came up in my timeline, and I was like, I want to hear it. Because somebody said, like, I think Alex would be better than Breeze immediately. And I'm like, well, let me hear Alex. So I just listened and kind of skipped to hear Alex's thoughts. And he was insightful. But, I think the same thing with Peyton. Like, Peyton's really insightful and is a good bullshitter. But again, like, in the confines of the broadcast, you got to go. It's just my point is there's just an adjustment period for everybody. And I don't know. I think Drew seems like he enjoys himself. I think the hard part is there's so much going on. Everything you say has to be like what you would say if you had, time to watch the broadcast and then repeat back what you're seeing. Cause that's what we expect from the football minds. Synthesize for us in 10 seconds what's really happening. And I think that's a challenge.
Well, my issue sometimes is like, I think people are obsessed with like, you got to be critical. Yeah, I just think you have to say what most people are thinking. Like, it's pretty obvious. Like, at the end of that game, Drew Brees, I go back to Greg Norman when Dustin Johnson 3-putted and Joe Buck's like, Greg, what's it feeling like here to be in this position? And he goes silent. I was like, this guy's not made for the job, and he was fired. Like, he didn't have anything. And Drew Brees, when he fucking throws the ball into the ground and gives up a play, like that's a pretty basic one. I was like, I don't know if that's a very good idea. You're not shitting on Derek Carr's career. You're just saying that is stupid. Because I think immediately from the plumber to Belichick sitting on his couch watching that game thinking like, I don't know are you sure this is a good idea? Like, that's a pretty basic football. And I think these guys really struggle at like refusing to just say a negative thing. And Peyton Manning has been open. Like, the reason he was hesitant to do any of this stuff is like, I don't want to be shitting on guys. I don't want to do that. At least he's honest. Well, it's like, Drew, if you're going to take this job, if you're going to try to be good, you do have to be open to like say something that's just completely obvious. I don't need you to go, be like, something we would say like this defensive coordinator needs to get fired. But on basic plays like that, like this is a dumb idea. They just wasted a play. And I think it's hard for those guys freshly out of it to like feel they're critical of anyone because they're like, these are my brothers.
Yeah.
I'm one of them. Like, no, actually you're not anymore.
Yeah.
You're on the other side.
And you don't have to say it's dumb, right? You just say, oh, they shouldn't have done that. Like that's, if I'm hearing Romo's voice in my head, that's probably what Romo would yell. All right. Rams. We got a football game Monday night. How did we live without Monday Night Football playoff football? I was thinking about that this morning. Like most years in my whole life, just Sunday football ended and then the playoffs, and then Monday I had to wait till the next weekend. Not anymore, baby.
Isn't it pretty nuts
so
that the 49ers are going to make it around past either the Cardinals or the Rams after the season?
Yeah.
Like as the season was going on, if I said like Niners are going to be, if I told you halftime at SoFi, like, the Niners guy are going to be around longer than the Cardinals or the Rams, you'd be like, are you sure? That would have been hard to believe. And that's true.
Definitely, wouldn't you agree with this? Both of them got a worse matchup than the Niners got.
I mean, the Rams do get a home. The Rams get a home game against a divisional opponent.
Rams, Cardinals, Cowboys. Easy to say now that we've seen it, but which team would you want to play the most and the least?
I guess we did see the Cardinals beat the Cowboys kind of easily.
Yeah, well, the Cowboys struggle with the Cardinals specifically. I think the Rams are the best overall operation. I think the Cardinals by far better playmakers offensively.
See, JJ's back
in Dallas. JJ is back. Yeah.
How's that?
JJ
I guess he's not used to. I guess they made the playoffs a little bit with the Texans.
What's going on with Darren Rovell today on the internet? Have you been anyone following that story?
No, what happened?
I don't know. Everyone's making fun of Rovell today, which happens like every 6 months, but I can't quite follow. I just kind of caught it late, and I thought maybe I'd be able to figure it out with like a couple scrolls, but it looks like it goes back pretty deep.
Well, it's weird. I saw some of these people I follow Crescent Chamath for saying basically he didn't give a shit about what's going on in China. I just thought it was your typical like no one will care. A couple hours later, the Warriors are putting out a statement that are like, this guy is a minority owner. He doesn't speak for any of us. I'm like, did you guys really need to put this out? Or is this just a Twitter story? Because my take was I didn't think you needed to release a statement.
But I understand you feel like everyone starts tweeting at them like, Warriors, what do you have to say about this? Right? If you're Joe Lacob, you probably just want to say something.
But does Joe Lacob run the Warriors? Like, does he see the mentions?
No, but I would imagine it gets to him pretty quickly. Don't you think?
We might have a problem on our hands.
Rovell attacked a Miami booster, and now someone's calling him a racist. Okay. Well, I'll dive into that later.
Oh, I thought I saw Portnoy retweeted something about Rovell, that Rovell was part of a booster club. He was talking shit about the booster. That makes sense.
Gotcha.
He deleted the tweet.
Okay.
Like talking shit about like one of their NIL,
got it.
People running the show. I don't know. That's what it.
Like I said, as we were starting to stream, I tried to like put the pieces together, and I just didn't have.
I would imagine Mario's down there in the Miami metro area rallying some cash.
Well, remember they were the first. Didn't Miami have the first kind of big NIL? Wasn't it some guy was like $500 to every athlete, or wasn't it Miami that had the first guy that came like months ago?
You're not talking about pre-NIL, the guy that was always at the front that was paying all the players. Remember Nevin Shapiro?
No, not that guy. I'm talking about like the minute NIL came out. Wasn't there some guy that owns like a bunch of gyms in Miami that just said every athlete's going to have a deal with me? You're right.
I wouldn't put it past them.
They have been waiting. Wait, we don't need to hide it anymore? Good, because we've been doing it very poorly for the last 30 years.
Well, what was the way that Mario got paid, right? They had a hospital that had $400 million of profit, and they invested some of it in Mario. Wasn't that pretty much over COVID?
Yep.
They took their hospital cash, they invested it, which is smart. But, yeah, they're just going to need to land some players. I actually saw that Mario landed a couple sweet dudes, like kind of flipped a couple guys, SEC-level guys. Like his recruiting class, given the circumstances, was pretty impressive.
There was a guy at the beginning of the week or maybe over the weekend at the Under Armour All-American game that CJ something maybe that he got.
He took the mustache strength guy with him, didn't he?
Aaron Feld. Yes, he did. Yeah.
Yeah. Feels like he took a decent amount of the crew with him, except DeRuiter.
I think DeRuiter had already taken the Texas Tech job, DC job. Yeah, he was that.
How many coaches would you guesstimate Mario took? Like 4 or 5?
I don't know. He took the guy that was the interim coach for the bowl game. I'm not sure how many he took.
And then the strength coach. Junior Adams, one of the dudes Lanning hired from when Washington. I was a scout, was at Boise State, and he was like a Chris Peterson guy, good recruiter, good wide receiver coach, like very close with like Cooper Kupp and those guys. I always thought he was an impressive guy. I'm a fan of him.
He became the Washington offensive coordinator this year when Washington fired its offensive coordinator. He was the receiver coach there.
Dan Lanning's brother was the offensive coordinator. What was that guy's name? The dude that got fired, the OC.
Oh, Donovan.
Lanning?
John Donovan.
Oh, John Donovan, not
John
Lanning.
Donovan, yeah. Yeah. What are my updated NFL playoff next weekend?
Rapshi says Mark Davis still plans to interview Rich Bisaccia.
Okay.
I say that thing's over.
Jim will already be in the building. We got a line Niners. Did I see Niners Packers was like 5.5?
5.5, yeah. Some of the early lines are kind of interesting. We got a lot of money to play with, guy. I'd be down to do $1,000 bet. I just don't know the game. I saw the Chiefs are -2.5. Niners are +5.5. What's the other game? I think the Bengals are +3. I kind of like Titans in that game.
Feels like there's going to be a lot. I wouldn't be surprised if that number.
Titans -3.5.
I wouldn't be surprised. Would you right now? Do you think that number stays the same, gets bigger, gets smaller?
I could see it getting a little bigger, maybe 4.5.
You think? See, I was going to guess that people start taking the Bengals, but maybe not.
I'm not going to try to. You and I were texting about this. You're at a pretty big disadvantage. You always were, but now there's just one team with the bye. There used to be two teams get inserted into the playoffs. Now there's just the one team. Like the Titans and the Packers. I mean, the Packers get a Saturday night game. I understand it's television, but holy moly. What a huge advantage for them.
Yeah. You mean that you're playing a team that just played on Sunday on Saturday night?
Yeah, then the Packers immediately today, what do you think they did? They started doing walkthrough stuff against the Niners, where the Niners are just like, everyone's in like ice baths and like no one's able to do anything. You got Kyle McDaniels and D'Amico just like banging away film as much as possible. Even though, it's for an uncommon, right, they're not a divisional opponent. Is it fair to say the Packers have become a pretty common opponent for the Niners?
Yeah, and the good thing for them is they didn't have to wait for another game to figure out, they're not playing tonight's opponent. That wouldn't be fair, right? So they knew who they were playing the whole time. And I think for Kyle specifically, it's probably a pretty streamlined prep. I'm not going to say it's an easy prep, but a streamlined prep.
Like, what do you think Arians' Bulls have been doing today? Like, just like, hey, we'll see you Tuesday morning.
What, Tom? You want everyone in practice tonight at 8 p.m.? Okay, tonight at 8 p.m.
Yeah, it's like, well, we don't, because my thing would be like, we don't, just listen, pick up your kids, watch the game, and then we'll send out a group text, and it's late. We'll see you here, meeting tomorrow, 8 a.m. We'll get rolling. Aaron's like, work? You see, I can barely walk. You think I'm going to come to work?
Arians, man.
Do you think the Niners, it would have been a much easier opponent playing the Bucs than the Packers? Much easier, strong, but just who would they rather play?
In
Tampa long travel.
In the warmth. Yeah, I used to think. Yeah, I do think you'd rather play the Bucs. I hate saying that because it's Tom. I just don't know if we can really talk about Tom in the postseason the way we talk about whatever his team was in the regular season. But
what do you mean?
Well, I just mean what the Bucs were in the regular season and some of the things they lack down the stretch. In the playoffs, I think Tom makes up some of that gap versus whoever else is playing.
I'm with you.
They have the guy. I don't even know who's the guy that he was throwing the ball to early that just kind of looks like Antonio and clearly just is getting Antonio's passes.
Yeah, they'll get guys up to speed fast. That's probably, to me, Monday. They don't know their opponent. Everyone, they're just repping the rules of Tom's offense. We do this when you do this. You do this when you do this. Rob's like, okay, I'll come in. There's a lot of that. Like, God, can we have the day off?
But I think if you play for the Bucs, like if you're Mike Evans, I was watching Mike Evans. I was watching that game thinking, Mike Evans has a Super Bowl ring. If Tom Brady doesn't show up to Tampa Bay, Mike Evans will never sniff a championship ring. Right?
Well, he might never have made the playoffs.
Now he's thinking, could I get 2? Could I get 3? I mean, Mike Evans is a Super Bowl champion. And who knows? If you're on that team right now, I'm watching some of these guys thinking they probably think I'm about to go win a ring with
Well,
Tom Brady.
That's why Jensen was banging the ground.
That's what, that's what those guys think. Yeah. Mike Evans was gonna just be like, had a nice career. Too bad he played for the Bucs the whole time, guy. And now he's a champ. So if I'm those guys, I have utter complete belief and faith that Tom's gonna get me there, right?
For sure.
And now we're playing one of these teams on Monday night.
Well, if you did your faith rankings in the quarterbacks, Brady, Mahomes, Allen, Rodgers, how would you rank them?
Oh, God. Just postseason faith?
I'm just the faith this upcoming weekend, who's going to play well?
That I have in those guys.
Yes.
I mean,
I thought those first couple drives, I'm like, Tom looks like he's 27 years old, just throwing dimes.
Let's start with this. Who's fourth?
Well, I think Tom has to be one. I think the question is like, do you have ultimate faith in Rodgers?
I have quite a bit of faith in Rodgers. I think the thing with the Packers is after Devontae, I think a lot of it is him and Devontae. I don't think they were this, now they can run the ball now. But
you get a weather check? I'm going to type in Green Bay, Wisconsin, see what we're looking at.
I mean, I guess you would say whose lows have been the lowest over the course of a season? Josh Allen's probably.
Yeah.
Lows. I mean, they lost 9-6 to the Jags this year. Crazy. I have quite a bit of faith in Mahomes.
Same. I would go Brady, Mahomes, Rodgers, Allen.
Christopher Vu agrees.
I mean, it's...
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't put Josh Allen ahead of any of these guys, even though he just played the greatest football game ever played.
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we're talking highs of 15. High of 10 and high of 16.
Well, I mean, it's not ideal.
Lows -2, -10.
That's not ideal for a thumb.
And a shoulder.
And a shoulder.
It's cold as shit there.
Is Jimmy coming out sleeveless? Remember what Dante Whitner told us?
No.
It's like Colin and the boys came out sleeveless. I was like, damn. You were like, did you consider doing it? He's like, hell no.
I would do the Mac. Come out in a scuba suit.
Scuba Steve.
You see Debo had a Tiger Woods undershirt on yesterday?
I saw that when you tweeted it. Did you tweet that? Is that where I saw it?
Well, I mean, someone retweeted it. I'm like, oh, I love
was it
this.
like the old TW on the? Is that what it was? Like I couldn't quite make it out.
TW, just like the high neck, but it's like it's not a collared shirt. He probably just likes it. It's like the dry fit material. It's long. Like it looks like he's wearing like a double XL because his fucking thing hangs down to like almost to his knee.
Why does he do that? I would love to ask him.
I mean, he's comfortable.
He's very swaggy, but like it's something to grab onto. That thing's always long when the game starts and then longer when the game ends because people are grabbing at it all the time.
I've been told Stereo Guy is the assistant strength coach, so he's got several roles.
Makes sense.
Did you see Kodak Black? I didn't know that much about Kodak Black until he was at the hockey game this week, and it looked like he was having sex. Did you see that thing go viral? He was in a box. It turns out she was just dancing on him.
All right, hold on. Found it.
Yeah. From afar, it looks like he's having sex, but then there's a close-up where he's clearly not. And she claimed they're just friends. But I
can't even tell what's happening in this video.
Yeah, you got to watch it several times. Looks like he's bending her over.
You know the movie with McConaughey where he's like he runs drugs through like Ireland? Have you seen that movie? It's really good.
It's Dallas Buyers 40?
No, not the cancer movie. This is more recent. It's got what is the McConaughey movie? Somebody in the chat might know. McConaughey drug dealer. It's funny, but it's not. It's movie. Anyway, I've gone too far already on this. It's The Gentleman. It's a good movie. Anyway,
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, there's this reminds me of a scene from that movie. But you haven't seen The Gentleman? That's an easy good watch.
Is it a relatively new movie?
Yeah. 2019. It's good, really good cast. Colin Farrell, Hugh Grant.
Wow.
Yeah.
How have I not seen this?
The guy from Billions, the son from Billions, who what's his name in Billions? Who like turns on his dad. Yeah, I've watched it more than like it'll come on TV. I'll watch it because it's just good. It's just it's a Guy Ritchie. It's just
where do you watch it?
I just see it on TV. I've just watched it multiple times with commercials. I think I probably rented it once upon a time.
I'm gonna check that out this week.
Yeah, The Gentleman. It's a good movie.
McConaughey's like that.
Oh, here we go.
What in the the king drug dealer?
The Kodak Black is what I'm watching. What
That's
in
fun.
God's name?
I know it's a crazy world we live in.
All right, who you got tonight? Rams?
Yeah,
Cardinals?
I mean, I honestly I don't feel good. I mean, I could see this thing being like 21-21 in the coming down the stretch.
Yeah. No.
I know this. Whoever loses, I feel like it's gonna be a tight game, and whoever loses is gonna feel like it's gonna be a devastating loss. It's gonna be, Kingsbury. It's gonna suck because they started, but they did make the playoffs. Can you imagine if McVay loses this game with Stafford?
Mm-hmm.
They have they got to win. It's at SoFi. Monday night feels like even extra people. Like I wouldn't say fly under the radar on Saturday, but like ain't nobody missing this tonight. It's like, oh, Monday Night Football playoff game on tonight. It's just gonna be on in the background. Especially the second half. Can you imagine if Sean's losing? It's a big night for him. It's hard. I mean, it's going to be tough. Stafford's going to have to win this game, which he should. Then he's going to have to beat the Bucs, and then he's going to have to beat either the Niners or the Packers.
I don't see it.
I don't either.
I don't see it.
This, to me, sets up pretty well for Green Bay. They get the Niners off a short week. Some of their guys are banged up now. They get them at home, and then they get a long week the following Sunday for either Tom or one of these clowns. Like this is kind of Rodgers' year to minimum be in the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah, I mean, I know Tom can play in the cold. Can his squad play in the cold with a crowd? They didn't. There weren't crowds last year on the road.
Their defensive front seven, I think, would translate. Vita Vea, he feels like a cold guy.
He played at UW.
Sue, cold guy.
Yeah.
Evans feels like he's made for the cold.
Yeah.
Gronk. Arians limping around on the sideline. Bowles. You see Arians hit the guy?
My first thought when I saw that was like, thank God this isn't college and we have to pretend like that's a bad thing to do to a player. Player turned on him like, who the hell just hit me in the head? And then he realized it was his coach.
Well, do you think Arians he thought he was about to get a penalty for doing something stupid?
That's what it looked like. It seemed
a
like the player kind of
couple people tried to pretend like it was a big deal. Like, I'm sorry, guys, no one gives a fuck.
No, a couple people in the ocean of takes. I need more than a couple takes for me to say people are saying.
Same.
In the ocean of takes. You see? How about the Stephen A. Michael Irvin video today? Did you see that? Everyone seemed to love that. Actually, was funny.
Yeah, is Michael Irvin his co-host?
I don't know what the situation on that show is. Because that's an ESPN show, but Irv works for NFL Network, or is that not the case?
I think he's his co-host now on First Take. That he got Max fired. I think, and that's Stephen A.'s lane, right? It's been since even Skip that he talked shit about the Cowboys.
Is that See, I guess I had forgotten. I didn't know that it was, but I guess since Skip, you might as well stick to your guns on that.
And they did show a lot of like crying fans last night throughout the game. It was a little bizarre.
What's the story on the one woman who was really like there was upset people, and then there was the woman who was crying, like really crying. Family member of a player, maybe.
Maybe her boyfriend had just dumped her. I don't know.
Could have been something else. Irv is co-host once a week. All right, I should put Irvin and Ravel on the show tomorrow.
I don't think Stephen A. and Michael Irvin give a shit about. I guess Irvin could get fired up about the U.
Yeah, the U.
Yeah.
All right.
God damn it, we're the U.
Podcast coming on Tuesday. We'll be back tomorrow, Tuesday, for a live show. There was a dude crying. Okay.
Just keep swinging our pick.
All right, y'all. Enjoy football. Monday Night Football. Go get it.
Rotating co-host. Those never work.
See ya.